The EV battery market is coming to Michigan in a big, big way. And Michiganders need to ask themselves, do we want to be a part of the supply chain that is helping to destroy Mother Earth? In this video, I'm talking about lithium mining, although cobalt mining is just as bad, if not worse, in different ways. But today, lithium mining is going to be the topic of discussion. My name's Michelle. Today is Tuesday, March 14th, and this is Michigan Muckraker. So we're going to jump in. The first article I have for you comes out of The Guardian. The rush to go electric comes with a hidden cost, destructive lithium mining. And this was written June of 2021. As the world moves towards electric cars and renewable grids, demand for lithium is wreaking havoc in northern Chile. This is a result of lithium mining. And that's like pools, well, we're going to find out exactly, but it looks like pools of acid. And they are pools of different materials. But from the sky, it looks like almost like we're putting a computer chip or something on the Earth. It's terrible. The transition to a new energy system is often understood as a conflict between incumbent fossil fuel firms and proponents of climate action. A lithium mine on Chile's salt flat. The Atacama salt flat is a majestic high-altitude expanse of graduations of white and gray, peppered with red lagoons of ringed by towering volcanoes. It took me a moment to get my bearings on my first visit, standing on the windswept plateau of 3,000 square kilometers, or 1,200 square miles. Oh, what's up with the big words, buddy? A drive had taken me and two other researchers through a rainstorm, and the peaks and valleys of the mountainous region of northern Chile. The sun bore down on us intensely. The Atacama Desert boasts the Earth's highest levels of solar radiation, and only parts of Antarctica are drier. I had come to the salt flat to research an emerging environmental dilemma. In order to stave off the worst of the accelerating climate crisis, we need to rapidly reduce carbon emissions. To do so, energy systems around the world must transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. Lithium batteries play a key role in that transition. They power electric vehicles and store energy on renewable grids, helping to cut emissions from transportation and energy sectors. Do they, though? Again, I'm all for renewable energy, but what about hydro dams? This is Michigan. We have tons of water. I'm not going to get on a huge rant, but it does bother me, and I do have a video that I'm planning to make on the dams here in Michigan, especially in Mecosta County, Newaygo County, and Muskegon County. The dams should be upgraded. We should put some innovation into them so that way we have renewable energy clean. But some people don't think dams are clean. I'll get in that later. But this lithium battery, this is not the only solution. That is what I want everybody to remember. We can do better. We can try something else. We don't have to do this. The only reason you would want to push electric vehicles this hard is for power. You can control electric vehicle remotely. If you had a hydrogen vehicle, that couldn't be controlled remotely, so it's not ideal. Lithium batteries play a key role. Okay. Do they? Underneath, we'll go down here. In the mining installations, which occupy more than 78 square kilometers, that sounds better than kilometers, and are operated by multinationals SQM and Albemarle. Brine is pumped to the surface and arrayed in evaporation ponds, resulting in a lithium-rich concentrate. Viewed from above, the pools are shades of chartreuse. I've never seen that word. I've only heard it spoken. Chartreuse. Is that correct? The entire process uses enormous quantities of water in an already parched environment. As a result, fresh water is less accessible to the 18 indigenous... I wish I would have looked this word up before I started this. Atacamino communities that live on the flat's perimeter, and the habitats of species such as Andean flamingos have been disrupted. This situation is exacerbated by climate breakdown-induced drought and the effects of extracting and processing copper, of which Chile is the world's top producer. Compounding these environmental harms, the Chilean state has not always enforced indigenous peoples' right to prior consent. These facts raise an uncomfortable question that reverberates around the world. Does fighting the climate crisis mean sacrificing communities and ecosystems? The supply chains that produce green technologies begin in extractive frontiers like this desert, and we are on the verge of a global boom in mining linked to the energy transition. A recent report published by the International Energy Agency states that meeting the Paris Agreement's climate targets would send demand skyrocketing for the critical minerals used to produce clean energy technology. The figures are particularly dramatic for the raw materials used to manufacture electric vehicles. By 2040, the IEA forecasts that demand for lithium will have increased 42 times relative to 2020 levels. And again, is this push actual supply and demand, the law of economics? Do people want this? Or is it the government forcing it on us all around the world? These resources have become a new flashpoint for geopolitical tensions, and US and Europe policymakers increasingly talk about a race to secure the minerals linked to energy transition and shore up domestic supplies. The idea of a new Cold War with China is frequently invoked. As a result, northern Portugal and Nevada are slated for new lithium projects, which I have a couple articles talking about the Nevada Lithium Mining project. Across the global lithium frontier, from Chile to the western United States and Portugal, environmental activists, indigenous communities, and residents concerned about the threats to agricultural livelihoods are protesting over what they see as the greenwashing of destructive mining. Indeed, natural resource sectors, which include extractive activities like mining, are responsible for 90% of biodiversity loss and more than half of carbon emissions. One report estimates that the mining sector produces 100 billion tons of waste every year. Extraction and processing are typically water and energy intensive, and contaminate waterways and soil. Alongside these dramatic changes to the natural environment, mining is linked to human rights abuses, respiratory ailments, dispossession of indigenous territory, and labor exploitation. Once the minerals are wrestled from the ground, mining companies tend to accumulate profits and leave behind poverty and contamination. These profits only multiply along the vast supply chain that produce electric vehicles and solar panels. Access to these technologies is highly unequal, and the communities who suffer the harms of extraction are frequently denied its benefits. Is this a supply chain that you want to be a part of? Do you want to help accelerate this damage that is being done to indigenous communities around the world? Argentina, Chile, the Republic of Congo with cobalt, and with lithium coming up Nevada. The indigenous population that has land in Nevada in the United States of America, they're having issues with this as well. Their land is being threatened by money. We are trying to switch to something that is no better for Mother Earth. Why? It's just a different set of problems. And we, I hate the saying in a way, but better the devil you know, right? Yes, I'm not saying that gas and oil and all that don't have problems, that fossil fuels don't have problems, but how about we figure out how to clean up what we already have instead of try to switch over to a whole new system that, again, just has different problems. There are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. Thomas Sowell. These profits only multiply along the vast supply chain that produce electric vehicles. Okay. The transition to a new energy system is often understood as a conflict between incumbent fossil fuel firms and proponents of climate action. As existential as this conflict is, battles between competing visions of a low-carbon world are intensifying, and they will become increasingly central to politics across the world. These competing visions reflect the reality that there are multiple paths to rapid decarbonization. The question is not whether to decarbonize, but how. No, I disagree right there. Why? Can you prove to me that carbon is bad? Knowing, as you should know, that we are a carbon-based life form. We breathe out, and the trees and the moss and everything else breathes in what we breathe out, and vice versa. We breathe in what the trees are letting go, breathing out. You could say, trees are alive, plants are alive. So I want proof that we need to decarbonize, because a war on carbon sounds like a war on life, since we are carbon-based life forms. And to say that we need to get to net zero by 2050 should be kind of scary to people. Like, if I'm a carbon-based life form and we want to get to net zero, and in math, like Bill Gates says, you have to get at least one number of the equation close to zero, if not zero. Well, what exact variable of the equation do they want to get down close to zero? So I disagree. We don't have to decarbonize. I think that's a false premise from the beginning. The root of the root is that you can't prove that carbon is bad. A transportation system based on individual electric vehicles, for example, with landscapes dominated by highways and suburban sprawl, is much more research and energy intensive than one that favors mass transit and alternatives such as walking and cycling. Yeah, they don't want us to have vehicles. Vehicles mean freedom. Unless it's an electric vehicle, and then it's not freedom, it's control. Likewise, lowering overall energy demand would reduce the material footprint of technologies and infrastructure that connect homes and workplaces to the electricity grid. And not all demand for battery minerals must be sated with new mining. Recycling and recovering metals from spent batteries is a promising replacement, especially if governments invest in recycling infrastructure and make manufacturers use recycled content. Moreover, mining operations should be required to respect international laws protecting indigenous rights to consent, and governments ought to consider outright moratoria on mines in sensitive ecosystems and watersheds. Gotion EV battery plant will be on one of the largest watersheds of Michigan. Do we want that? I know I keep asking, but we need to ask ourselves. And if we don't, we need to say something about it now, or forever hold our peace. Movements on the ground in Chile are articulating this vision. The Plurinational Observatory of Andean Salt Flats links environmental and indigenous activities across the so-called Lithium Triangle of Chile, Bolivia, and Argentina, and has advocated for holistic regulation of this vulnerable desert wetland, prioritizing its intrinsic ecological, scientific, and cultural value and respecting communities' rights to participate in this governance. Chilean activists are clear. There is no zero-sum conflict between fighting climate breakdown and preserving local environments and livelihoods. Indigenous communities in the Atacama Desert are also on the front lines of the devastating impacts of global heating. Rather than an excuse to intensify mining, the accelerating climate crisis should be an impetus to transform the rapacious and environmentally harmful patterns of production and consumption that caused this crisis in the first place. Got another one here, and this is from January 18th, 2023, The Paradox of Lithium. And this is just an example of what it looks like after lithium mining. Doesn't that look pretty like a scar on the earth? Does that look like something that we want to do? across this plane of existence, we want to mine her like that? I don't think we should. The race toward net zero emissions depends heavily on lithium to power electric vehicles, to store wind and solar power. This element of the periodic table is one of the main protagonists of the economic and infrastructural transformation that we are experiencing today. Our dependence on lithium recalls that of oil and coal that transformed our society in the past. At that time, however, the long-term effects of burning fossil fuels were unknown, whereas today we know of the highly negative aspects of lithium extraction on the environment. With this knowledge should come responsibility towards the environment and future generations. We must not fall into the same traps from which we are trying to free ourselves. Together with the powerful curative and palliative qualities of lithium on the effects of climate change, it is necessary to consider the potential side effects and communicate them in a transparent manner. These side effects include use of large quantities of water and related pollution, potential increase in carbon dioxide emissions, which isn't that the whole point? We're supposed to be lowering the CO2 emissions for some reason. Production of large quantities of mineral waste, increased respiratory problems, alteration of the hydrological cycle. Get this out of here. Obviously, the economic interests at stake are enormous. Australia, Chile, and China produce 90% of the world's lithium, the global lithium market rapidly approaching $8 billion. A paradox, therefore, can arise between clean revolution and dirty lithium mines. It is true that electrifying cars and other aspects of our society favors the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions. However, after we consider the cost of emissions associated with extracting lithium, the transition may not be as efficient as we believe, especially when miners are not using clean energy. Let us consider, for example, electric cars. To give an idea of this effect, producing a battery weighing 1,100 pounds emits over 70% more carbon dioxide than producing a conventional car in Germany. According to research by the automotive consultancy Barrel Strategy Advisors. Furthermore, lithium mining requires a lot of water. To extract 1 ton of lithium requires about 500,000 liters of water and can result in the poisoning of reservoirs and related health problems. What to do then? To begin with, we should invest in an alternative solution to lithium batteries. At the same time, recycling and increasing the lifetime of these batteries would reduce the need to mine huge quantities of the precious metals. This effort should be accompanied by launching lithium mining operations with strict environmental laws and regulations, and investing in advanced mining methods capable of extracting lithium from seawater. Remediating and reducing the impact of lithium mining is essential to be able to call the steps we are taking towards a new world progress. Otherwise, we're just going in circles. And that's where I'm at. This, again, we're just replacing one form of energy that is bad or has negative effects on our environment with another form of energy that have negative effects on our environment. Why? Why are we spending all this time and money? Lithium white gold rush in Nevada could desecrate native land. And this was October of last year, October 2022. So it's not just in other countries, it's now in America as well. Over 17,000 claims have been made to mine lithium in Nevada, most of which is on Native American land. This so-called white gold rush, named for its similarity to the gold rush in California in the mid-1800s, comes in response to increasing worldwide demand for lithium battery manufacture. Most lithium consumed in the U.S. is mined in Australia and South America, refined and processed into cathodes in Asia, and then shipped here to the Western Europe to assemble electric batteries for vehicles, a lithium research professor, Michael McKibben, said. The mad global The mad global lithium rush is supply and demand driven. Demand for electric vehicles, smartphone, and mobile electrical grid storage batteries has made lithium consumption go way up, and prices have increased nearly 500% in the last 2 years. Now over $70,000 per metric ton of lithium carbonate. So electric vehicle demand has gone up because of government policies, not because of authentic, organic consumer demand. Now, some people do want electric vehicles, but it's a very small amount. The government wants to push it on us. So when demand is not authentic, that should be a problem. We shouldn't accept that. That's kind of CCP-like. However, 3/4 of the planned mining sites are on Nevada tribal lands. There is concern that the destructive and polluting processes of lithium mining will decimate the local land and its sacred significance to the tribes. Shelley Harrow, a Fort McDermott tribe member, sent a statement that the Thacker Pass mining site in northwest Nevada, which is expected to produce at least 80,000 tons of lithium per year, is also where dozens of Native Americans were killed in 1865. She said that the Thacker Pass mining site will be the biggest desecration and rape of a known Native American massacre site in our area. Current traditional mining of hard rock granite, lithium, pegmatite deposits, mainly in Australia, and soft rock salar, dry lake bed, brine deposits, mainly by evaporation in Chile and Argentina, are both quite damaging environmentally, in terms of disturbance of land surfaces, high water consumption, and having a very large footprint. Lithium is sourced in a number of ways: hard rock mining and underground reservoirs, and Nevada in the US, okay? Like any mining, the lithium extraction will have impacts. One has high CO2 emissions, and the other route has an enormous land and water footprint per ton of lithium production. One more for you really quick. This is an update. Nevada lithium mine wins ruling. Green energy fights rage on. This is out of the Nevada appeal, and it was February 11th, 2023 that it came out. A U.S. judge has ordered the government to revisit part of its environmental review of a lithium mine plant in Nevada, but denied opponents' efforts to block it in a ruling the developer says clears the way for construction at the nation's largest known deposit of rare metal widely used in rechargeable batteries. The ruling marks a significant victory for Canada-based Lithium Americas Corporation at its subsidiary's project near Nevada's border with Oregon, and a setback, at least for now, for conservationists, tribes, and a Nevada rancher who have all been fighting it for 2 years. I'm sorry to you over there that are fighting this in Nevada. I really hope that you will win, but big money is involved. Big government, big business, big money. So I'm not surprised that this judge chose big money and big business, but I hope that you win your fight in the end. What's really crazy is that Nevada has problems, water problems. So I don't know how this lithium mining will affect those water problems. Maybe this will tell us. The opponents said they are considering an appeal based in part on growing questions raised about the reach of an 150-year-old mining law. It's the latest development in a series of high-stakes legal battles that pit environmentalists and others against so-called green energy projects President Joe Biden's administration is pushing to help speed the nation's transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. The White House says the mine on the Nevada-Oregon line is critical to ramped-up efforts to producing raw materials for electric vehicle batteries. Critics argue digging for lithium poses the same ecological threats as mining for any other material or metal, in the biggest gold mining state in the United States. They say efforts to downplay potential environmental and cultural impacts amount to greenwashing. We need truly just and sustainable solutions for the climate crisis, and not be digging ourselves deeper into the biodiversity crisis, said Greta Anderson, deputy director of the Western Watersheds Project, one of the plaintiffs considering an appeal. U.S. Judge Miranda Dew in Reno concluded late February 6 that the opponents had failed to prove the project. The U.S. Bureau of Land Management approved in January 2021 would harm wildlife habitat, degrade groundwater, or pollute the air. She also denied, for the third time, relief sought by Native American tribes who argued it could destroy a nearby sacred site where their ancestors were massacred in 1865. I'm confused here. The same people who say that they care about indigenous rights and the Native Americans and know that they kind of got screwed over by the American government hundreds of years ago, and still to this day, honestly. But now we're going to push through with lithium mining in Nevada because green energy, and we're not going to take into consideration the Native Americans. We're not going to take into consideration the wildlife and the pollution that lithium mining does have with it, and it does cause pollution. It makes no sense to me. I fail to understand. It's a contradiction in thought. And the same people that will say, oh, if you really cared about the environment, you'd care about X, Y, and Z. It's like, if you really cared about the environment, you would care about the animals, the pollution that enters the air, the fact that CO2 is a big byproduct of lithium mining. If you want to think CO2 is bad, which it's a greenhouse gas, I don't get how it's not green. But I digress. In her 49-page ruling, the judge, who went and judged against the Native Americans, in her 49-page ruling, Dew emphasized deference to a federal agency's approval of such projects, but she also acknowledged the complexity of laws regulating energy exploration under a recent U.S. appellate court ruling she adopted that could pose new challenges for those staking claims under the mining law of 1872. While this case encapsulates the tensions among competing interests and policy goals, this order does not somehow pick a winner based on policy considerations, Dew warned in the introduction of her verdict. Other projects that face legal challenges in U.S. court in Nevada include a proposed lithium mine where a desert wildflower has been declared endangered, and a proposed geothermal power plant on federal land near habitat for endangered toad. Last week, General Motors announced it had conditionally agreed to invest $650 million in Lithium Americas, in a deal that will give GM exclusive access to the first phase of the Thacker Pass mine in Humboldt County. The equity investment is contingent on the project clearing the final environmental and legal challenges it faces in federal court. The favorable ruling leaves in place the final regulatory approval needed in moving Thacker Pass into construction. Well, there you go. That's why she ruled the way she did. She was probably paid. And if that's too cynical of me, sorry. I am very cynical. I have hope for the future, but when it comes to these business deals, when it comes to our government being captured by big business, I am very cynical. I understand that money talks, unfortunately. And in this case, it seems like it. Now, because she said, because of her ruling, rather, they're still able to go through so far with their deal. So GM has a huge vested interest in this project. The favorable ruling leaves in place. Okay, Dew handed a partial victory to environmentalists in agreeing that the Bureau of Land Management had failed to determine whether the company had valid mining rights on 1,300 acres adjacent to the mine site where Lithium Nevada intends to bury waste rock. But she denied the opponent's request to vacate the agency's approval of the overall project's record of decision, which would have prohibited any construction from beginning until a new record of decision was issued. Environmentalists clung to the lone part of her decision favorable to them. That part incorporates a recent ruling by the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. The 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in a fight over the mining law of 1872 in a case in Arizona that could prove more onerous. Two mining companies that want to dispose of their waste on neighboring federal lands. The San Francisco-based court upheld at Arizona ruling. A San Francisco-based appellate court upheld an Arizona ruling that the Forest Service lacked authority to approve Rosemont Copper's plans to dispose of waste rock on land adjacent to the mine it wanted to dig on a national forest southeast of Tucson. The Service and the Bureau of Land Management long have interpreted the mining law to convey the same mineral rights to such lands. It's disappointing that the BLM and the Biden administration can't see through the greenwashing, said Katie Fight. So, Michiganders, you want to be a part of the supply chain? You really want to help with the terrible campaign of lithium mining around the world? I don't. I think we should try something else. I think that this is a waste of time, and it's worse than that, obviously. These indigenous people, their massacre site is sacred to them, and we're going to destroy it for money. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you like this video, hit the like button, share with everybody you know, if you so feel like it, if you feel so inclined. And I thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.